Every day in my interaction with short-term rental hosts, I see them getting themselves really stressed out, really wound up, and I see guests getting extremely frustrated all the time by excessive rules, penalties, and surveillance. And hosts are always telling me that if we don't, crack down on these guests, that they're going to be able to get away with anything, and then all of a sudden,
next thing you know, there's money missing off the dresser and your daughter's knocked up.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Airbnb ABCs. It seems like every day I am talking to a host or owner that is stressing themselves out over relatively minor details regarding their short-term rental that end up hurting them over time. It can hurt them in a lot of different ways, from how much money they're bringing in to the reviews that their property is getting that also affects how much money that they're bringing in, to just wrecking their mental health, trying to chase down all of these minor details and things that, in my opinion, are stuff that you sort of need to let go, as the Frozen movie says. What they end up doing is they end up driving themselves and 99% of the good, decent guests that just want to come there and have a decent vacation, defending against the 1% or less who probably aren't going to care about the rules anyway, no matter how many that you put on there. And so what I've kind of come up with over the course of my being in the short-term rental business is my F-it style of management. And of course, the F stands for forget, so forget it style of management. But it basically just means that I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. I'm going to keep the big picture in mind, go for making money and getting 5-star reviews. And the things that I've seen people really get hung up with are their insistence on doing some things and using things that just cause a lot of problems and a lot of friction. These things, in my opinion, are rental agreements, security deposits, watching cameras, getting upset over extra guests to a degree, things that happen outside of their home that they can see, like people smoking or even people urinating off a deck, which is, highly common in the Smokies, bringing extra pets or pets that they didn't tell you about, maybe to a non-pet friendly property, and, overall, just any of those little things that aren't necessarily something that was in the agreement or, is just unexpected. The big thing that I try to do is I try to always make it that if something isn't a problem, don't make it one. Being right can backfire. Being right versus what is, and winning the battle versus winning the war can definitely blow up in your face. I want you guys to keep your eye on the prize. I want you to keep making money and getting 5-star reviews. And so I'm going to get into all those, why I don't do any of these things. But first, hit the like button for me for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you are new here, and we're going to get into rental agreements and security deposits right now. This is going to be something that affects people's ability to book. So before folks can even come to your property with more people, a pet, and smoke outside when they're not supposed to, they need to book your place first. And especially with the decline in bookings and the decline in revenue that's happened over the last 6 to 12 months, getting people in the door is going to be a bigger deal. And a lot of folks really are hard on these rental agreements and these security deposits because they feel like it's going to give them some extra bit of protection. And there's some times that I think it's a good idea to have them. We're going to get to that in just a second. But the biggest thing is that if you are listed primarily on Airbnb and VRBO, or if that's all that you're listed on, it's really not needed. There is already an agreement that guests and hosts have certain responsibilities in renting property as far as how the property is presented, how the condition actually is, if the amenities are there and work, and guest behavior requirements as far as, taking care of the place, leaving it as you found it, etc. You can look through the Airbnb and VRBO agreements, and you can find out what those are. The thing is that people use these rental agreements as basically a catch-all that says they're not responsible for anything. If you do anything to the property as a guest, that you can be held liable for it. And the thing is that all of those things happen anyway, with or without a rental agreement. For the most part, you are not going to be able to disclaim negligence or gross negligence. So any of these other things that end up happening that you think that you are going to be able to just be free of, you're still going to be able to be pursued for those. And even things that might be relatively minor, with this rental agreement, you could still be pursued for those just because you said that you aren't responsible for anything. If someone gets a cut or a splinter or a stair collapses and they want to pursue you, you can, for one, use your insurance, but two, they can still do that, and then you would still have to fight that with your rental agreement in a court of law if you want to. On the same side of that, even if you do or don't have a rental agreement, you can go after people for damages that they cause to your property if you really want to, if it's worth your time, if it's worth pursuing someone, taking them to small claims court, showing up, paying court fees. All of these things are things that you're going to have to do if you have a rental agreement and you want to enforce it. I have heard a lot of people say that they really have no intention of doing that. It's just there to deter people. But if you don't have any intention of following through, and the majority of folks are going to be okay, I don't necessarily think that it's a great idea to do that, because it is going to cost you bookings, because there's people like me out here that don't have these things that make it very easy for folks to book. And if we're looking at equivalent cabins when there's not a lot of demand, people are probably going to book me before they book you with your rental agreement. On security deposits, I feel like it's a lot of the same way. If you're on Airbnb or VRBO, there are mechanisms in place for you to recover damages. For Airbnb, there is air cover, and for VRBO, there is their security deposit that's built in that you can select how much you want, or there are insurance policies that you can have the guests and you can make them purchase or pay upfront the amount of the deposit. The only other way I would go with that is if you guys are using direct bookings, then you may want to use a rental agreement and a security deposit, because there is not that platform there that has rules for each side and has resolution procedures in case somebody has some sort of accident or damages your place. So the rest of these things are going to involve you looking at your cameras and watching guests as they go about their business, either when they check in or throughout their day, whatever. And the one way that you can really just eliminate a lot of this stress and a lot of these problems is to simply not look at your cameras. It's going to drive you nuts. If you are looking at every guest that comes in, if you're looking at every time that they come and go, I don't know who has time for this in their day. I mean, I run 3 of these. I run, a family, and I have a full-time job. I don't have time for this. So maybe the cure for watching your cameras is just buying more property so that you just physically do not have time to go through all this footage. But the difference between cameras at these Airbnbs and cameras at hotels and resorts and any other public place is that those cameras are kind of have this view of it's a public view. We're watching a lot of people. If you have a resort, if you have a hotel, you might be looking at a parking lot. When you guys have cameras on your Airbnbs, they are looking directly at one unit, at one person or one group of people all at the same time. Imagine, if you will, if you had a hotel room and outside of every single doorway there was a camera looking down at you so they could see you every time you come and go. It's a little weird, it's creepy, and that kind of weirds people out and makes them feel kind of weird. I do have cameras. They face the house and they allow me to look at the property when weather has gone through. That's basically all I use them for, and to be able to see contractors when they're there so that I can just keep tabs in place. I do not look at what guests are doing because, like I said, for one, I don't have time, and for two, I think it's creepy, and three, my prices in the descriptions and the rules that I have in my listings do a good job of weeding out the bad apples. So what if you can't help but look at your cameras? Maybe this is your first property and it's your baby, or you just can't, and you see that they have brought more guests than either what they have on their reservation or what is allowed. I want to go back to when we started this video and say, if it's not a problem, don't make it a problem. 1 or 2 people, either over the amount that they booked for, if you got a place that sleeps 6 and they only said they had 4, or if you have a place that sleeps 6 and they brought 8, that is not a huge deal. I know a lot of people are going to say it is a huge deal, and you can blow me up in the comments and I'll reply with basically these same things, but it is not going to be a major problem, especially if it's like 2 young kids, or if it doesn't really make any difference, to be honest with you. There is not going to be a lot more wear and tear. This is the 2 things that people usually give me: a lot more wear and tear and overwhelmed septics. Because I'm in the Smokies, we have a lot of septic systems. There's not going to be a lot more wear and tear from 1 or 2 people. You could have double the amount of people that were there, but maybe they're all, the nuns crocheting group, and they're going to take immaculate care of your place. Or you might have a family of 4 that has 2 kids. They're jumping on the couches, on the beds, they're writing on the walls. It's just insanity. Just because there are more people than is technically supposed to be there doesn't necessarily make it a problem. It's not going to overwhelm a septic system. It's not going to cost you more in utilities. For 1 or 2 more people, there is plenty of extra capacity in any one of those, and in general, utilities are relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things for short-term rentals. Day visitors, I see a lot of this as far as people showing up in the day, them having guests. You know, you might have a place that's rented for 6. Maybe there's another cabin that friends rented for 6, and now they're having people over and there's 12 people there. It is not a problem. You really shouldn't even know about it because you shouldn't be watching your cameras. But if it does become a problem, like say there's more than 50% occupancy or 150% occupancy and it's on a day-to-day basis, that could be a cause for concern. It may not. You're going to have to use a judgment call there because at the end of the day, this is your ship to run. A lot of folks will bring pets either to pet-friendly cabins and not pay the pet fee, or they will bring pets to non-pet-friendly cabins because they just want to. Again, this is another thing where if it's not a problem, don't make it a problem. All of my cabins are pet-free. That doesn't mean that pets don't come there. That doesn't mean that our cleaners don't find evidence of pets. And a lot of folks say that they have their cabins pet-free for allergy concerns. And that's something that we put in our listing. It is a concern. My wife does have some, cat and dog allergies, even though we have a dog. The big thing that you need to understand is that even if folks have pets, don't bring them and come to your place, they are still going to bring pet dander. They're going to bring dog hair. It's not going to be as much as if they actually brought the pet. But I can tell you right now, we purchased a new car. Our dog has never been in it, and there's still dog hair all over the car just because you bring it with you in your bags, your clothes, your body, and everything. The thing with pets is just to try to calm down. A lot of times, again, going back to kids, they cause more damage than animals will. If a pet is well trained, a lot of times if people are sneaking pets in, they're relatively well-trained dogs because they think that they're going to get away with it, but for the most part, I found that cleaners are basically detectives and they can find nearly anything. The best practices in this case is just to let it go. Again, inform your cleaners that there's a pet there because there are special tools and such that they use to get pet hair out of stuff, so that helps them get ahead of it and helps them minimize their downtime that it's going to take, and also adjust their schedule in case they think it's going to take more time to clean your place than it normally does. The biggest thing that I try to do is to eat the cost. A lot of times my cleaner will charge me $50 extra for a pet fee. My biggest thing is I want that 5-star review. I do not want a retaliation review, and I don't want to have a bunch of back and forth with the guests where I have to take up a bunch of my time dealing with this. So in this case, $50 is totally reasonable for me to just eat the cost, get the review, and be on the road. If there is actual damage, and pets do cause actual damage, and it's of an amount that's worth dealing with this, worth taking time away from your life, which is the only non-perishable thing that you have is your time, so we're talking something at least like $250 or more. For the most part, that's when you guys can go after them for actual damages and go down that road and try to still salvage your good 5-star review rating. And then smoking weed, doing other things like peeing outside or peeing off of decks or something like that. It may not be the thing that you want to do. It may not be what you want at your property. And if they're smoking inside or something like that, which I don't know how you would know, that is obviously a problem because I don't know anyone who has smoke-friendly cabins. That might be a niche, actually, if you want to pursue that. But again, to go back on this refrain, as long as they're not causing a problem, then don't make it a problem. The fact that people are going outside to smoke instead of smoking in your place is a great thing. I always ask people to, if they ask me beforehand, to just make sure that you dispose of any smoking materials in the trash. Make sure they're out, things like that. Depending on what your moral compass is as far as smoking marijuana and things, that it's really not up to you. That is up to the guest, what they want to do. But again, if it's outdoors, if it's not hurting anyone, if it's not damaging your property, don't just be right just to be right. It will almost always bite you in the end. They probably know that they're being sort of a jackass, so there's no sense in letting them then take out their jackass frustration on you. And like peeing off decks, I saw that posted on one of the forums that I was on. It's something that men do, okay? We do it. And people do that down in the Smokies. Just don't look at your cameras and you won't see that happening. Now, on the other side of things, if there is a problem, go ahead and deal with it. If you get a complaint that there is noise at your property, if there's barking, if there's excessive people, if there's excessive cars, and they're blocking the road, blocking a shared driveway or whatever, now you have a reason why you had to look at your camera so it becomes less creepy for the guests. If you say, the neighbors got a complaint, we looked at the camera, we see that you have 20 people in our 6-person cabin, you're out of here. You've got to go. Contact Airbnb, contact the local authorities if you need to, and contact whoever your local people on the ground are, usually your cleaners. And from what, in my experience, with the cleaners cleaning up after these people, they are more than happy to go there and kick them out, especially if the police are there to back them up and to keep the peace, which is really what they are there for if you call them. The big thing in this is you're not spying on people. You're not just casually looking at what they're doing on their day-to-day. You have a reason to look at the cameras, and it's a very valid reason. So if that is the case, fire them up. Look, see what they're doing, and take action on it. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, the reason for all of this is to focus on the big picture. It's focus on winning the war, not getting bogged down in the battle. What we want to do is we want to make money with the least amount of stress possible, and we want to solidify those 5-star reviews. All of my properties on Airbnb and VRBO all have 4.9x stars or higher. I still have one that's like a 5-star rating, which is, by the way, not a reasonable goal to maintain a perfect 5-star rating. Someone is going to ding you for something. It could be legit, it could not be. 5-star throughout the life of the cabin or property is not, an achievable goal. A retaliation review is going to cost you time and money. This is where you have found out that someone has a pet, you charge them a fee, they say they didn't, or they're smoking outside, you're saying you're watching your cameras. They get on there, they leave a 1-star review, they say the place was filthy, the host was rude, they're always spying on your cameras, and that review is not going to get taken down because it does not violate any of the spelled out rule removal rules as far as Airbnb, or it doesn't go against the content policy of VRBO. So you are going to spend time dealing with this guest and whatever their back and forth is. They may say, my bad, and give you the money. They may not. But on the ones that don't, you're going to have to spend time dealing with the guest. You're going to have to spend time on the phone with the platforms trying to get this paid. It might be $50 or whatever, and then trying to get the review removed. You might have to call 3 or 4 or 5 times. Maybe they remove it. Probably not if it's just like the one that I just did, because I know that because it doesn't violate any of these policies. And then if you have a 1-star review and you want to get rid of that, you're going to have to delist and relist the property, which is a relatively time-consuming process. So, you might have 10 to 12 hours into this $50 thing that you want to be right on, because it's not right that the guests are getting away with this even though these aren't long-term tenants that you can train as far as behavior goes. They're going to be here and gone. And so now you have spent 10 hours to collect $50 before taxes. And so you are essentially working for $5 an hour, and it's just not worth it. So why stress over these things? Why let these things on these 1% of these guests ruin the experience, or just kind of dull the experience for the 99% of guests? And why push people away from your listing with all of your pre-booking stuff like rental agreements and security deposits, push them right into my hands, where I'm going to take their money, leave them alone, get the 5-star review, move on down the road, and win the battle and win the war, grow my business, and just keep on going without losing my mind. So guys, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button for me. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe down below so you don't miss anything that we put out for Airbnb, VRBO, and the short-term rental business all together. Click on the videos that are on the screen. They're going to tell you guys all about how I run my short-term rental business, the type of cabins that we buy. There should be a playlist up here for all of the cabins that we have in the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge market. I appreciate you guys watching today, and I'll see you in the next one.